We
Hello, everyone. Alyssa Nicoll here with the most amazing, and can you believe it? I'm not alone tonight. Carl, let's make sure your mic's working.
Yeah, I think my mic is working. I hope so, at least.
Oh my goodness, that face that I have Frosty on right now. Sorry, I will fix that. So, hello everyone. We're live. We have multiple people on the stream, and that's really just like the biggest accomplishment of my year so far. I don't know if you've ever worked with OBS, but we're doing it. So tonight, on our third and final TLDR for ng-conf Hardwired, we're going to be going over the highlights, as you'd expect. We have a surprise guest. That's right, Alyssa was able to pull in not one, but two people.
I should have brought like actual party poppers, so it just
You
explode.
should have
Yeah.
seen like my face during like the closing remarks. I totally missed it because I was like trying to set up scenes, and I'm like, OBS. So we're here, we're good, all is great, and oh, did I mention there's gonna be prizes? We're giving out T-shirts as usual, but we were like, fighting back and forth. We're like, what's the best prize to give away tonight? And we couldn't decide between, what were they, Carl? It was
Yeah, we had some of our original prizes, but we figured we shouldn't do all the same stuff. So we actually have an iPad. I almost said iPod, which is, I mean, I'm almost 10 years too late at this point for that, right? But we also, speaking of pods, a pair of AirPods as well. So whoever wins tonight actually gets to choose between one of those prizes.
iPad
So
or AirPods?
yeah, exactly.
iPad,
So now we get a little bit of a choice here, right? So maybe that's a difficult thing for whomever wins, right? That they have to make that hard choice. So, but that is going to happen.
So yes,
Somebody, by the way,
in order to
in
win,
chat mentioned Zune. Multiple people did, and I will die on the hill that said that the Zune, the second one, was the best music player that's ever been
Zune?
released, and it is a shame what happened
So
to
it's
it.
just like a what? Like a little MP3 player?
Yeah, the MP3 player, so Microsoft's equivalent of the iPod. Yeah, the first one was a little bit iffy. The second generation, still to this day, is probably one of the slickest user interfaces and the slickest physical devices I've ever had in my hand.
Your Zune?
It died on me, and I keep it. I almost have made a shrine to it. If I one of these days am brave enough to open it up, I might use it again.
Necklace
Yeah.
with your Zune attached.
If only.
So yes, there's a form in the chat, and if you fill out that form, you will be entered to win either, again, AirPods or an iPad, your choice. And then we will be giving away T-shirts as well. So could not hurt to fill out the form, win some prizes. We do, as mentioned, have a special guest. It is the Sam, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Julian. Hello, darling. Your face is massive. Say hello to everyone.
Hey, it's actually Julene.
I always say Julian.
Yeah,
Julene.
But that's okay. Everybody messes it up. It's fine.
Julene. So you did it. You did the most epic talk, and you survived the Q&A session. Which is actually more terrifying for you, the talk or the Q? Or
I think the Q&A, because I can practice the talk over and over again, but the Q&A, especially you mix together NGRX and authentication, and you're asking for trouble.
Did you get any questions that were just like, no?
Thankfully, no. It was pretty. All the questions this time were pretty straightforward. At NG India, though, I got some real doozies. Like after my talk, a lot of really tough questions. Those are some really engaged people. They were like asking me questions about all kinds of stuff.
Were you able to answer, or were you all like, "I'm going to email all of you after this"?
Yeah, I think I got like 60% of them, or maybe 70% of them, and then there was quite a number of questions where I was like, let me get your Twitter info and I'll shoot you a message.
Man.
Yeah.
So your talk was over NGRX and authentication. And you were supposed to have, you said Kim was supposed to co-host with you?
Yeah, so we were originally going to do a longer version of the talk we gave at RxJS Live called RX What? And it was about the difficulties of learning RxJS. But it was just like a whole combination of things with having to go virtual, and like Kim had some illness stuff she had to deal with, and so it just didn't work out. So we're gonna save it rather than trying to like kind of like cobble it all together. We're just gonna do it at another conference or something.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I just, it's been so fun. There's like so many curveballs this year. So it's like just even like globally, personally, I feel like everyone's just having a rough 2020. So I'm really proud of you and the way you pulled out an amazing talk for this conference. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I originally told Frosty that I was going to do the same NGRX auth talk that I had given at NG India. But then as I was getting into it, I was like, oh, I want to tweak this part or change this part. And then I was like, I think I just want to build a new talk.
It's one of those
memes, I probably spent a solid
2 days later. Like
yeah, 2 days later. I probably spent a solid like 30 or 40 hours on just like building out the slides and the talk and everything. NGRX talks are really hard. Auth talks and NGRX talks are hard because they're such complicated subjects.
Complicated things, and then you put them together.
Yeah, I like to play on hard mode. Yeah, I just play life on hard mode, and
if it helps, no by reward. The way, I definitely I personally haven't used NGRX. So I actually learned a lot from the way that you explain things in the slides. So you definitely did a great job with being able to consume the information. I'm sure somebody that knows even more about authentication and about NGRX also picked some stuff up. But as a newbie in that particular arena, it was a great talk. So appreciate it for sure.
That's really great to hear. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, it's a complicated topic. I like how in the Twitch stream I'm like your floating head overlord.
Listen, some people have just learned how to get multiple people into Twitch.
I mean, I'm impressed. I'm hosting Kurt Kempel from Apollo on the Auth0 channel on Tuesday, and it's going to be my first time getting a guest into OBS and everything. So. More power to you. I'm proud.
All the luck. And seriously, I mean this 100%. Ping me, text me, DM me if you have any problems last minute, because I can probably run through the top 15 things that has happened to me this week. So things to try.
Yeah, so. That's
awesome. So before we let you go, I wanted to ask, how was it this year presenting virtually? How was your experience, as a speaker at a virtual conference?
I mean, the organizers did an incredible job, honestly. Like, because I'm in DevRel, like I've spoken at various remote meetups and things like that, but I've never spoken at something at this scale virtually. I mean, there were like over 1,300 attendees and 30 or 40 speakers or something. And so they had this like backstage Google Meet where you would go 45 minutes before your talk, and they would brief you on everything, give you instructions, and then a minute or two before your talk, they would send you into a Zoom link that was piped into OBS, which was then sent to Crowdcast. So I can't imagine so most people don't know that my partner Amy actually works for Aaron Frost. That's a story for another day. But so she's actually one of the main organizers of ng-conf this year.
So you got to see behind the scenes.
Yeah, I really saw the behind the scenes, and it's actually really funny because she's around the corner of the house, in a different part of the house, and so I would walk out there and she'd be doing all this frantic chat stuff and on Slack with all the organizers and everything, and then I just come back into my cave of silence back here and hold my talk.
I can
so
only
it's pretty funny.
imagine the last couple of days trying to run this tiny stream, much less all those moving pieces you were just talking about. I'm really, really proud of them for the feat they pulled off this year. So
yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, it obviously there are hiccups. I honestly think most of the hiccups were just Crowdcast being so overloaded, probably with just this time. I think all providers right now are just totally overloaded with traffic.
That's the thing, is it's not just, like Crowdcast can handle 1,000+ people like for one individual stream, but I think it's everyone is doing remote right now. Everyone is overloading every chat system, right? And so I think it's just there's so many points of failure, and I feel like we're all getting hard lessons in scalability right now.
Yeah, I saw an article this morning that said Zoom has gone from 10 million users to 200 million users since December, which is insanity.
Who's going to call that, right? Like, you go and tell your boss, we need to be ready to handle 200 times our load, and he's going to laugh at you in your face. Because it's not like...
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, every startup wants exponential growth, right? But I think this was kind of crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. They're actually going to do like a freeze on feature development and just like in privacy and like scalability stuff for a while, which is probably smart.
Super smart. And honestly, I mean, I hope everyone can do that, like can actually take the time to do that right now, because holy moly.
Yeah, no app I've ever written has had to have 200 million users use it, so I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, before we get into highlights and move on, do you have anything you'd like to tell your avid listeners?
No, other than just on Tuesday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, go check out the Auth0 channel. I'll put the link in the chat. It's going to be, if you're doing any GraphQL at all, it's going to be really cool because Kurt Kempel, who's a DevRel for Apollo, is going to walk us through changes that are happening with Apollo 3. And so that's going to be super fun.
That's awesome. I'm going to make sure me and my friends raid you if we're on around that time. So
awesome.
Excellent.
That'd be great.
The best of luck to you in your streaming endeavors.
Thank you. I think we're all in the same boat right now of like going remote and going virtual with everything. So
it's like, as I'm talking, your face like on OBS got like super tiny. It's just funny. Good luck,
it's
darling.
like it's like fluctuating in and out. I can see it on the chat.
I've like locked in your. I'm like, this is the best I can do right now, folks. I love you all.
Yeah. It's okay.
Well, Sam, have a marvelous evening. Thank you so much for what you do for our community and for just killing it today at ng-conf Hardwired.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. I'll talk to you all later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, Sam.
Bye.
Whew. Well, that was okay. I don't know why his video was doing that. I put it to a certain size. I pressed the lock button.
Yeah, it's a variable lock apparently, so it does nothing. By the way, Alyssa, now that it's just the two of us, which might be a little bit easier to manage, your audio might only be coming through the left-hand side. I'm not sure if there's any configuration option that you might be able to look into. Yeah.
Carl, you talk. I do this.
I can very easily talk. So I see some folks in the chat talking about if anybody else's brain is slush or mush, I should say, right now. And for myself, I mentioned this on each of the streams we've had so far. I generally hang out at our booth and then do a lot of hallway conversations whenever I'm at a conference, trying to meet as many people as possible. And I don't always end up being able to go and see talks. So what's really interesting about ng-conf this year is actually being able to see everything, right? So my brain, even though I'm home, even though I have unlimited access to my own coffee and to all the supplies I have at home, it has not helped. Just as mush brained at the end of the day as I think I would be at a full day of attending a conference. So. It's a lot of good information
I feel like
out there.
It's like more back to back, more like packed in now, and so I feel I think I couldn't actually take those physical breaks because I was like watching. So I think it's a little bit more taxing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think we all get into this mode of there's so many different talks and so many different topics that you run into, and for myself, right, for those of you that don't know me on the stream, I'm the product manager for Kendall UI, so I have to know about Angular, React, Vue, jQuery, just about anything, right? So sometimes there are topics that are transferred between the frameworks, and other times they're very specific items. So this is one of those conferences where I get to sync up on the latest and greatest on Angular. And even though I thought I knew everything about Angular 9, for example, I learned a ton over the first day, and then all the talks today have had a lot of topics that I haven't been able to dive into personally. So it's great to get that information and then say, oh, I need to go ahead and research that a little bit more, or my next little project needs to take advantage of this just to be able to see how it actually works. So that's excuse me, that's definitely a cool part of the conference. So I have a lot of research to do over the weekend and the weeks to come, of course.
Well, darling, I'm going to have to be lopsided tonight. I can't figure it out right now while we're on stream, and I don't want to take up any more time looking for it.
Of course.
So I'm sorry about that, guys. It's my first time using Streamlabs OBS software for Mac, and I definitely recommend it if you are into streaming at all. Loving it. Except for, of course, not knowing what I'm doing, but first day user. So today, day 3, sad face. There was a late start. I think it was like 30 minutes or so from Cowdcast. That's how you say it. And so you could tell that poor Frosty was frustrated at the end of it after his opening remarks because I can only imagine the stress. It's kind of like Sam said, how like all of the organizers are scrambling to get it going. And so finally we all got connected and we got going. And the first talk of the day, the keynote for day 3, was with both Igor and Minko. Excuse me. And so Igor talks about the tensions between developer experience and user experience, balancing both of those, especially at scale with Angular applications and with Angular itself, and trying to find the right balance. So I loved that. I loved the puppy memes that he got to throw in there. One hot tip that I wrote down there were so many, use Source Map Explorer over the Webpack Analyzer. So I guess he was saying that the Webpack Analyzer wasn't up to date, and so he was highly stressing use Source Map Explorer.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time that got brought up at the conference, right? That people said, definitely know about this, and it was a big part of the talk of just really look into what and analyze your application's performance, right? And talked about even setting the production flag when you deploy to production. And you'd think, yeah, that's kind of obvious, but with all the developer tools that I have in the browser, the amount of times I land on a page that's using the development version of something, and it just pops up and lets me know about that. It's very interesting. So, just a quick reminder: if you push to production, use the prod flag. But then there's he commented on a bunch of other stuff that you need to keep in mind in terms of analyzing your application and making sure that you know where everything's coming from.
Yeah, and so this was a dual keynote. So I think it might be under the same recording, both Igor and Mingo's parts. So if you're looking for his hot tips, it's going to be like the last 10 minutes or so. So probably like right in the middle of the video. And then Minko came on and he talked about how they were listening to the community feedback whenever they created and were pushing out features for version 9 with things like reloading with SSR, new deployment schematics as part of Angular Fire. And then he went into more about deployment and Jamstack. And so Minko, he also invited a guest onto there. I love when they do this. They bring in, last year, I think they did a couple of people who were working with large-scale Angular apps, and they invited them on during their keynote. But he invited Amanda from Crunchbase on to talk about the importance of Angular Universal. So I guess Crunchbase has been using Angular Universal for their large-scale app since I think the beta, she said. And so that should be the end half of the keynote, if you want to check out that.
Yeah, and for those of you on the stream, I believe it cut off for all of us. So definitely go check out that again if you haven't had a chance to today, of course, since you've been watching a lot of ng-conf. But I think that section was still recorded. It was just that it cut out at that point.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to jump back and check out some of the things that she was talking about, which is great, of course, to see. I love being able to talk about a feature and how great it is, and then say, hey, this is somebody who did it, and this is what they've seen, right, and experienced. So it's great to hear from the folks right away.
So that was our keynote. I don't know if you've caught only bits and pieces throughout the conference, but they started doing, what is this called? It's like Pictionary to guess a word. It's kind of like,
I'm terrible with these, and I don't.
bad at
This
them?
is. Yeah, I'm bad at them, and then also, so for those of you that don't know, I'm originally from Sweden, and this is one of those things where like I just have no idea what the name of this is, like zero. I wouldn't even be able to guess. So if it was $100 million on the line, and somebody said, "What's the name of this?" I'd be like, "Well, that's my shot. I lost out." So it's just odd how like I identified a gap as soon as you asked me what's it called.
So
I was like, nah,
it's
no
so
idea.
funny. I was about 50-50 on being able to guess it before Frosty could, but Frosty, I think, is over in your column where he was not. It's funny because you can see the differences between the hosts, and Joe is very, I've got to hang out with both of them throughout the years, and Joe's very like analytical. He loves games like this, and so he's throwing these things up for Frosty, and poor Frosty's over here like, it's a screwdriver, and you're like, you can do it. So they're
Yeah, once we found out the answer, I thought they were super clever, but yeah, my brain is bad at these for sure.
lots of fun and games between things, lots of goofiness.
Yeah, not just dad jokes, on day 3, we varied it up a little bit, right? Yeah.
And then Jennifer Wadala, she is on the NG show with me and Frosty and Brian Love and Shai Resnick. And it's a new podcast. I think we've got like 10 recordings, but only like 5 or so are edited. So if you go to ng.show, you can check out that podcast. But Jennifer, she did a talk on the controller container and I, which I was so pumped about. I had no idea that it was going to be Animal Crossing themed.
Right? Yeah, and by the way, I don't know if we'll see this in some of your screenshots, but there were some gifts coming from April 1st and, various times of the day. So I'm sure that with the kind of change in the theme and the talk, she just made it 100% Animal Crossing themed. And I loved every second of it. Yeah, so she did a great job with that and getting all these cute gifs and reactions and everything from the game into the talk. Yeah, it was a great job.
Her example was building a form so that the Animal Crossing user could apply for home loans, which cracked me up. And I haven't played it yet, but I keep hearing, she keeps telling me in Slack, because we were talking with Frosty about like it was a couple days before the conference, and he was telling us, he was like, guys, I don't know how to de-stress because I'm at such a high level right now with trying to organize all this. And she kept just like all caps in the Slack, Animal Crossing. And because I do need to get a Switch. Super jelly of the person yesterday who won one so that I can try it out. But yeah, I loved her example. If you missed her talk, it was really entertaining. And she walks through this problem that she's seen through, I think, clients and through different people of having nested components and how to get access from your form group on all the different levels. And so she actually proposed, here's this option, here's this option, here's this option. She had like 3 different ones, and she walked through basically when to use which option. And I loved that. One of her questions, I'm wondering if it's up on screen. Yeah, it's cut off a little bit, but one of her questions during QA was, when is it better to use the control container versus passing the parent's form group into the component as an input? And I love her answer. She goes, I'm lazy and I tend to stay away from inputs and outputs, so use the control container. So
yeah, but it seemed like from my understanding, it seems like a little bit more of a robust approach to take as well, right? When you're dealing with these complex kind of forms, and we see that a lot with kind of UI components being included in these kind of forms to the point where people have actually asked us to create a component around it, like a wizard component, for example, which from my understanding would probably take advantage of something like this in order to make sure, if you have forms on multiple like pages, so to speak, or just that kind of a form within a form, whatever it might be, right? Super slick way of being able to handle that easily.
No, I loved her talk. Raymond in the chat said, I love that talk. Right there with you, Raymond. I freaking loved it.
Yeah. Anything with forms, I think we're all building them, no matter what kind of applications we're building. So anything form related is a big hit on my side.
She said, is that Bill Odom in the chat? Bill, I love you. Bill's amazing. If you don't know, he is a teacher at Oasis Digital, and he's like the smartest person in the world. And my sister, who's non-technical, she's going for a graphic design degree. She came with me to, I think it was London, and she was helping me take care of the baby during a conference, and she met all of my Angular friends, all the speakers. And we go back to the hotel, and I'm like, so what do you think of all my friends? And she goes, I liked that Bill guy. He was cool. So out of all the Angular people, all the speakers, because it was a very similar lineup to ng-conf, she was like, Bill's cool. And I'm like, all right, there you go. Bill's number one in her book. So thank you, Bill, for joining us tonight. He said, Angular forms are crazy powerful. I rarely see anyone take full advantage of them. Yes.
Yeah. And it was also a shout out to the material stepper. So Angular material, the stepper component, I think is a great way to handle this kind of just at least a layout to make it right if you have a multi-step form, and then combine that with the control container. I think you're in a good spot for forms.
I totally, as you were mentioning Kendo UI earlier, Carl, I was like, okay, so if you're just tuning in, I'm Alyssa Nicoll. I'm an Angular developer advocate for Kendo UI, and this is Carl. Can you explain your job? Because to me, you're the magical wizard that knows everything about all languages.
Thank you. No, but I'm the product manager for Kendo UI. So the jQuery, Angular, React, and Vue libraries that we created are all driven by me, and then the team, of course, that actually write the components. I'm more of a guide than an actual developer at this point.
He's brilliant and he's humble. So there you go. We were actually brainstorming on what we were going to do in case this happened, the virtual conference happened, and this was Carl's brilliant idea to do a TLDR stream so that we could still kind of get that hallway track feeling. So that's we're just doing some recaps.
Hopefully people are enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun, and it now forces me even more to look at the session. So love it. I have to pay attention.
I know, right?
I've told people, no, I can't talk. I'm watching ng-conf. Get out of here.
My sister called, and I'm like, I have to hang up on you now.
Yep. Did the same thing to my dad during Shy's talk. I was like, I can't talk right now. I'll call you back later.
I mean, it's Shy. Like, come on, you can't miss that one.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you missed the beginning of the stream, we had Sam Julien. Did I do it right?
Mm-hmm.
I suck at pronunciation of not just names, just general wording. And so I always feel so bad because I want people to know how much I deeply respect them. And my inability to say things has nothing to do with the respect level. So he was on as our guest and kind of gave us his viewpoint from being a virtual speaker this year, and apparently his partner is an organizer this year for ng-conf, and so that was awesome. Go back, watch the beginning of Lay Twitch if you missed it. By the way, we are giving away either your choice if you're the winner, AirPods, or what's it called? iPad. I'm like, it's a square. You tap it.
Yeah, it's not the iPod anymore. It grew up. You take 4 iPods and you glue them together and you get an iPad.
And that's your prize. That was the weirdest thing to get in the mail.
Those were the memes when they first announced it. Yeah.
There's a form in the chat. Fill it out. We'll be doing our best to giving away T-shirts and to everyone, and also there's the mega prize that you could win. So.
We have some happy winners so far. So congratulations to them.
Oh my goodness, I know, right? So Sam's talk, he went into effects, and loved it because he actually talked about just kind of how they can be intimidating, how they're so powerful, but they're not as concrete as actions or reducers. And so they're underused because of that fact. And so he had some really awesome tips on basically writing out your flow so that you're not getting confused and you have this, this is where I need an effect. And another tip of have one effect handle for, sorry, what am I saying? He was basically saying have one effect per side effect, I think is how he said it.
Yes.
And so I loved all of his tips. They were brilliant, and a lot of it was over my head. I'm not very, like my NGRX levels are like here, and so I think I'm going to be going back and rewatching and then playing around with the demo because I loved what he had to say, and he had tons of hot tips.
Same here. I know about NGRX. I haven't implemented it myself, and I was able to follow along. And specifically with authentication, right, was what Sam was talking about. So being able to go through and understand it and actually say, oh man, yeah, I get it. Like I never felt lost. Sometimes you can get a little bit lost. So definitely something good if you have no idea what NGRX is, but if you also then already know a little bit about it, I'm sure it will make even more sense. So, yes. And for those of you that on the stream, that happened to be what I said when we had Sam on the call as well, but just it bears repeating for sure.
Oh, hot tip that he gave during a Q&A session. Somebody was like, what's that typeface you're using? And he told us all about TypeWolf, which I didn't even know about. Looks like an awesome place to find fonts. So check out TypeWolf. I
bookmarked it for sure.
I think it was during his talk that Chris chimed in. This was in the chat. I seriously love this conference. Streaming difficulties happen. The content and community have still been incredible. And then it was just like pages of +1s to that. And so, it's just really... This is why I love this community, because even before the pandemic, I've always gotten this vibe from the developers in the Angular community. I know that sounds crazy biased, but I joined the Angular community and I've never left because of just this positive vibe that I've always seen and just saw displayed in the chat today yet again. So wanted to mention that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I didn't have the chat open every day or constantly throughout the day because I can get distracted by something constantly popping up. So it's just my own pro tip of stopping things to distract me from what I'm watching. But anytime I opened it up, it was always either funny or, sometimes there were problems with the stream, but we all knew that was happening. So it was just a confirmation it wasn't just on my side. But there's a ton of positivity. And even when stuff kind of happened with the stream, nobody flipped the table in the chat, right? It was always just jokes, very lighthearted. So I think that's a big deal.
Just shout out to you guys for being so awesome. So the next one was Dan Wallin. Did I do that one right? Anybody want to correct me? I'm not going to say it again. That was it. Stepping up.
I feel like you're just putting me on the spot to make sure I know how to pronounce everybody's names.
Oh my! Nope. That's Dan. I freaking love this guy. He's amazing. Anytime I've reached out to him privately for help on things, he's always just right there. He's so humble but so smart. So he did his talk on stepping up observable services to observable store. And I think this is like still a hot topic right now of state management. And it's kind of funny because of all the podcasts I'm on, I hear all of the differing opinions, and there's a lot of them right now. And I love what he said near the end. He was like, this is not the way. This is a way of handling state management. And if you're lost, you don't know what to do with state management right now, this is a really great place to get started. And so I love that.
Yeah, and so I haven't had a chance to take a look at this library, but I think starting off the talk with saying, listen, we hear about state management essentially everybody talks about it, so we feel pressure whenever we start an application that we need to have state management. But chances are that a lot of your applications you're creating don't need state management, right? And even if you do, something like observable store, it's just an easy way to either just dip your toe in it or not to have, this full blown state management library.
I love. Did you hear him during? I think was it a Q&A? He was basically saying, like, start off with if you don't have any state management at all, obviously use services. The step up from that is going to be like using observable services, and the step up from that would be observable store. And so it's just kind of
exactly.
tiered.
Yeah. And then eventually you might end up with the full-blown state management library, right? But I think it's a good reminder, because I see that in literally every JavaScript framework there is now, where you need state management. Do you really need that for your personal blog site? Not really. Do you have a large enterprise application that has a lot of interactions? Probably, yeah. So there's a lot going on in the talk for sure. But I hadn't heard about this library, so it was interesting to see that. I already know some of my smaller apps that actually could benefit from using it. So if you haven't taken a look at it, definitely look through the talk, as we went through a couple common scenarios and just laid out the architecture. So it makes a ton of sense in terms of when you might want to start using it, or if you've already gone beyond the point of needing it and you need something else,
I love
right?
what Wolf said in the chat. He said it's not a competition, it's about coverage of use cases. So
yeah, that's a great way to put it for sure.
Question during the Q&A for Dan: if you've already have NGRX, would it still make sense to use the observable store in conjunction? Loved his clarification on this. If your team's already using NGRX and it's working for you, don't change. Like, it's a state management solution that's working for your team. He said he's not a big fan, however, of mixing and matching. So even if NGRX is not working for you, he does not suggest doing both in tandem on a project, because I think he put it, in for a world of hurt. So loved that advice. Yeah. So, next up, we had the incredible David East. He is a skateboarder. Found that out a few years ago. I don't know why that's the fact that stuck with me. I think it was because he's so good at it. And I did used to board, and I'm so bad at it. Oh, it's because we're both goofy. We both goofy. That's why we bonded over it at one point. So yeah, he is working for the Firebase team, and he did. He's so entertaining. I couldn't stop laughing during his talk, because it's not, I guess, not an obvious humor. It's kind of on the drier side, and it just makes me laugh so hard. So he said,
he got me good. I don't know how the recordings are going to have the chat, but he pre-recorded this talk, right? So we had a bunch of fun interruptions from his kids and just like really relatable things. So
he had his
from
kids
home.
come on a couple of times. That was super cute. But he said, this is the best 20-minute talk of Firebase at ng-conf that you'll see today. During this time
in
slot.
2020 today during this time slot. Yeah,
but he said it so slowly. It was just so funny. So I really love his humor, and I'm gonna back up actually. Loved his talk. He was just walking through. It was pre-recorded, but it was also really great quality, and he took you from 0 to 60 using Firebase with Angular, and so
exactly. So if you've never used Firebase before, and are curious, right, in terms of what it can do for you, he mentioned, okay, we're gonna go from 0 to 100. First went from 0 to 10, then 10 to 30, and then it continued from there in chunks. So even as a Firebase user, I've used it in a couple of applications in the past. I learned some things about Firebase in this talk, so definitely worth checking out, even if you feel, I've used Firebase before, so I know what it's about. So definitely, and just for the humor, it's 20 minutes at that point, so what can go wrong? You probably will miss out on the chat. He was pretty funny in the chat as well. He had me cracking up. I had the chat window open the entire time because his chat messages about himself during the talk was great.
Was he doing commentary on himself?
The first thing he typed was, "Who is this guy?"
Darn it.
And then he was just talking about, because people were asking, is this in real time? And he's like, yeah, it's in real time.
I love it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty
He's
good.
a great guy. Give him a follow on the Twitters if you haven't already.
Yeah, sure.
So the next one was the state of RxJS with the infamous Ben Lesh. He, I think I have it here, walked us through what's new. And I wrote this chunk of glorious notage. So I know this is TLDR, and I don't know what I was thinking. I apologize, world. Carl, I don't know if there's like one or two.
Yeah, these are some of the notes I took as well. So really for me as a non-user of RxJS, what I took away from this is that there's a lot happening in RxJS. But I think the biggest thing in that sense of a TLDR is there is so much good specific information tied in here in terms of what's new in 7.0, what's coming as 7.1, and the approach that they're taking with deprecating certain things, taking it kind of one step at a time. So just hearing about yes, trying to deprecate some older API calls, but at the same time keep it backwards compatible and just a I can't even say that word now. The methodology. There we go. To doing these releases. I think that's very good to know about. So if you're doing any form of RxJS, definitely check it out just to know what's new. If you haven't upgraded to 7.0 yet, what might be right around the corner with 7.1, and then just some previews about 8.0 and where they're heading there.
No, it was wonderful. So check out Ben's talk. The next one is in the same vein. I'm assuming that's why they were side by side. The State of NGRX by Mike Ryan. And during this one, I'm going to let you lead, Carl, because this is when Alyssa decided to test out Streamlabs for the first time. So I missed his talk.
Yeah.
So tell me about it.
Yeah, so started off by talking about how NGRX originally, as a screenshot is showing, I had a couple different aspects to it, right? The store, the router, and the database. And over time, kind of some things took over, like, for example, the router, they had the official router coming out of Angular, right? And then you still have some libraries out there, but that kind of fell out of favor. Not as many people were using the database, so NGRX essentially just became known for the store. And most of the talk kind of went into kind of what's happening, not just with the store, but what are some changes coming to NGRX throughout 2020 and beyond, taking it back into kind of thinking about, okay, what other tools can NGRX provide beyond just the store? I think it was kind of like, this is what the original library was for. Now we've been focused on this so much. Because of essentially the community feedback and so many people using it. I didn't have a chance to grab all the stats slides, but I had a ton of stats around just store alone, how many downloads it had, how many applications it's been included in, and everything like that. So it's definitely a big part of it, but it's cool to see somebody working on this kind of library to see where else they can go and kind of get back to their roots.
No, I think it might have been Mike Ryan. It was somebody from the team that told me it was months ago that they don't want to be known for just the store. Like, they want to be like the place for reactive programming, like where you go to find all the tools, all the things. And so I'm excited to see how that expands and to get more tooling too. So.
Yeah, and I think depending on the screenshots we have in the notes, we have shout out to the team. So yeah, the kind of core team up on a slide. I didn't have a chance. Again, I was too slow with my screenshots.
You have to be so
my
quick.
print screen button was acting up. I don't legitimately. I was hitting print screen. I'm like, no, print screen, and then I have a tool to like crop things out right away, and it just wouldn't allow me to do all the things I needed to do. So I missed out on some things that I wanted to add in here. But kind of this slide at least talks about kind of the future thinking of the library, right? Of 2020 is the year that NGRX is getting back to its roots.
No, and it says a new creator function, strict runtime checks help developers adhere to architectural constraints, and released V9.
Yep, and the latest version, which came out last month, V9, is compatible with Ivy and Angular V9. So I think that's important to know if you haven't upgraded yet and are looking to upgrade.
So check out Mike's talk on NGRX. The next one, I was literally on the floor rolling the whole time. Just
Shai's good at at coming up with some creative talks.
He makes me so happy, and I love Bonnie. I don't know if you all saw it. Bonnie, his little assistant. There were some people in the chat who's like, "What's with the beaver?" And I'm like, "Wow, if you don't know about Bonnie, there's so much to catch you up on. You have to go over to Shai's testing website. I have a link actually to a free workshop that he is offering for you to learn more about testing. But this was an amazing, magnificent Shai Resnico, and he did an amazing talk on, it's basically like he's a magician and he's walking through all of this magic that he's doing, and then he would interrupt himself and explain the magic behind the scenes of what was really going on. And again, that free workshop link, I made a little bit.ly. Let me see if it's on. Yes, you can see it. So there's the little bit.ly link, but go over to his website if you want to know more about testing and you want to be entertained, because that's Shai in a nutshell. So
yeah, I think for a topic like this, right, everybody talks about doing testing, but nobody really does testing. And you know, we sometimes I think people say they do testing, Carl, even though they don't. Yeah, exactly. I admit that I don't do as much testing as I should be doing. If I add a test to something, I'm like, oh wow, that's rarefied air. But I think taking a topic like that, right, and making it kind of fun like this, with the kind of the ooh, look at this magic, and then taking a look behind it. You know, it's entertaining while super informative. So. Just like I was talking about, hey, anything with forms, I'm all for. Testing is there to make you a better developer, and your application is more robust. So I think any talk around that is good. But this is a great way to take something that I think most people might just say, I know enough about about testing. You know, I don't need to pay attention to this, and kind of lets people really pay attention. So it's good.
I am in the opposite boat. I'm like, testing. So I'm definitely signing
I just know I should do it, and every time I don't do it, I just feel guilt the entire time. Again, none of my applications are running hundreds of thousands or millions of users. They're just showcasing proof of concepts or just internal tools or for myself. So so it's a little bit less needed in terms of the testing, but at the same time. Really do
Tiger's
need to if you're building it until I was forced
to. So
yeah, I now I see the benefit. Yeah, I know the benefit, and I still don't do it. But that's not don't do as I do. Just do as I say.
This reminds me of the TypeScript conversation that I had years back with the team that I was on at the time, because they wanted and were attempting to move to Angular from AngularJS. While keeping CoffeeScript, and let's just say that project failed epically. But it was really just fighting for, why is TypeScript worth it, and what can it offer? Now it's like a no-brainer, and it's not really an option. But back then it was very amusing. So that's what this is reminding me of, the testing with the knowing the benefits. So.
Yeah.
And
that's not just for Angular developers, by the way. While yes, this was Angular specific, of course, but no matter what language you're using and what framework you're using, you should be looking into it.
So again, check out his free workshop. And Salt said Bonnie is great, and now I'm feeling like an idiot because I was spelling Bonnie's name wrong today in the chat. So I'm sorry, Bonnie. I love you. It's not with a Y. Take Salt. You're the best. So the next one was by Keen, Angular Language Service. Okay, so hands in the air, for real. Was I the only one who thought this was like about I-18 and stuff? Like language?
I originally, looking at the title, that's exactly what I thought it was. Yeah.
I felt so dumb. Whenever he was going into it, like he opened the gate, out of the gate, and he was showing like an example. Essentially, language, I like put the definition down here somewhere. The Angular Language Service provides code editors with a way to get completions, errors, hints, and navigation, right? So whenever, and okay, this is the chat of people saying, oh yeah, I thought it was that too. And John Papa jumping to the rescue, he means Angular Tooling Service by that. So
yeah.
So I loved this talk, but I was really confused. It took me like, more than one demo, because he was showing something in VS Code with Angular Language Services. It was like a new feature. And I was like, when is he going to get to the content? Why is he showing us this weird tip? Like, I did not click until I actually saw in the chat that, he's not, that's okay, Alyssa. So if you are like me, they have features like autocomplete and error checking. And I did link the docs, angular.io/guide/language services service. And so he went through basically where they're at right now, the features that they have, and talked about future plans with that killer unicorn. So I don't know if you had anything to add for this session, Carl.
No, this was one of those things where I just learned so much about what's available in Angular. I really didn't know about this at all, to be honest. So it's and I think this pops up once in a while, right? And this is really what these conferences afford to me, where you just find out something you just had no idea about, because it's so hard to, in a 20-minute session, 40-minute session, to be able to dive really deep in and come out and be like, I'm an expert now. I mean, that's why folks are
nice.
like going paying for workshops and things like that, right? Or like hours and hours worth of training.
Green just mentioned that it's actually included in John Papa's Angular Essentials extension. I'm assuming that's for VS Code.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which I'm already using, so I didn't know that I was using it.
You're already taking advantage of it.
Thank you.
Well, it's similar to the builders talk that we had on the first day, right? Where we found out something that's a part of Angular that you can take advantage of, right? And you might not know about it, but once you demystify it a little bit, it's something that you can start seeing and potentially start finding usages for. So I'm sure this is one of those things for a lot of people, even though they might be well more versed in Angular than I am, for example. Probably learned a lot from this. So definitely interesting to see kind of the inner workings there.
So if you, like me, had no idea and you missed Keen's talk, check it out. He goes over the new features and the future plans. So the next one was magical. It was a pre-recorded one, but it was still really awesome, by Divya and Tara on, you guessed it, the Jamstack. And she opened, I loved this clip I got of sliced bread.
It's a good pick to grab from the talk for sure. It animated up, by the way, for those of you that didn't check it out. It was a loaf of bread, got sliced, and then whoop, yeah.
So Jamstack, a modern architecture to build sites that are fast, secure, and served without web servers. So
and you know what's funny? I've been talking about Jamstack before, and I'm aware of Jamstack. And before this talk, I was like, yeah, I kind of know what Jamstack stands for. But if somebody really told me what does the J, the A, and the M stand for, I'd be like, JavaScript.
JavaScript application.
So it is funny how these terms kind of come to play, and then people don't necessarily always mention what it is, right? It was similar to the mean stack back in the day, right, with AngularJS. Once the first couple of wave of blog posts came out and talked about it, all of a sudden you just saw mean everywhere. So if you missed the boat on the first wave of content, you could just be talking about the mean stack, and you knew you were using all these tools, right? But then you just never knew what the acronym stood for. So I was like this close to being that way with Jamstack. So it was just funny. When I saw this pop up, I was like, yeah, that's what it is.
Ryan's making me giggle. He said the unicorn could be coughing into its elbow, and you're right.
Oh yeah,
that's exactly what's happening. Yeah. The Rona, which I love. The chat kept calling COVID-19 by Rona. So that's, I guess, the new
Yeah, Ronas, I think, are our attempt as a society to make it seem worse. Better than it is, right?
To lighten up the horrible situation.
Exactly, lighten up the horrible situation. Yeah, so I do refer to it as the Rona as well, quite often.
So yes, Tara and Divya, they tag team this talk. Tara was on the end half, and she actually jumped straight into code and walking us through creating an Angular and Jamstack application. And she ended her stream with some really killer resources on all things Jamstack. So if you are wanting to get plugged in or curious on how to get started with Jamstack, definitely check out the end half of that talk.
Yeah, and she also did it through Netlify. So if you've never played around with Netlify before but heard about it, it's a good talk to use to see how you can actually use it for creating something with the Jamstack.
The goofballs and the floating head again. And there was conversation between Joe, the floating head, and Joe's body, supposedly. This person's a little bit more buff than Joe, I'm thinking. Not kidding. JK, I love you, Joe. No one tell him I said that. Okay. Whenever he walked on, I was like, that's not Joe's body. So lots of goofing in between sessions. The next one was The Makings of Scully by Sander, and it was the last session. So if you've made it through the stream thus far, they are nearing the end. Prizes will be soon. So Sander's the lead architect of Scully, which I did not know. He walked us through, you guessed it, Scully, which is the first Angular static site generator. I don't know if I have I have other notes. I think this was one you covered for me again because of OBS. So if you wanted to.
Yeah, so he did he stepped through and kind of highlighted not just what Scully is, but just some general things about why would you want to use a static site generator, for example, and a lot of that, if you're not familiar, it speeds up your application because you're just serving the static page and you're not doing a ton of extra. Potentially, you can still add some JavaScript, right? But essentially, once that payload is over there, you don't have to worry as much about application slowing things down. It's SEO friendly thanks to the way it's set up. You actually have no or just less dependencies on APIs, which not only reduces the performance impact that they can have, but something that I actually haven't thought about is the security around that. So it means that applications are inherently more secure because you have less kind of use cases that you cover through the APIs, right? So there's less to be exploited. So there's a lot going on there. So you cover that. Walked into an example of using Scully. So, if you haven't used it before, I'm actually, based on this talk and just hearing about Scully in the conference, going to try it out over the weekend to see just what it's all about, how easy it is. But yeah, this kind of walked through taking an existing kind of couple pages, Scullifying them, so to speak, or starting from scratch with Scully. Yeah, so there's a lot of good information coming out specifically about Scully. So it is fairly recent. I think the official release was in 2020, right?
Yeah,
I don't think it was in the end of last year. I think it's like February or something like that, right?
Frosty's been talking about it like crazy this year, and so I don't think it was it was definitely not a thing last ng-conf. So
yeah, I because I follow more or less everybody involved. When you just keep on hearing tweets about things, and then it kind of mixes up with, wait, did it come out yet, or are they just like hyping it up? But this is a great kind of full rundown of Scully. And I also really liked, we'll get, of course, to the Q&A for everybody, but in the Q&A session, they kind of covered a little bit about some of the unique aspects of Scully compared to other static site generators. And we found out that, yes, it's on Angular right now, but it's actually providing enough unique features in the approach that it's taking that they're looking to then offer this for React, for Vue, and for other libraries as well, which is really cool to see that it was architected in such a way that it's not just Angular. It can actually be enhanced to work with other JavaScript frameworks. So you'll be hearing a lot more about Scully, I'm sure.
For sure. I think we are ready for the thing that everyone, maybe question mark, is most excited for. Your
prizes
bigger. You're welcome. Now our faces are.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah, I saw something grow out of the corner of my eye. So when I was looking over, I was like, oh, what's going on? Yeah.
Oh, darling. So this is the end of the TLDR, the end of our hallway chatting, the end of ng-conf Hardwired 2020, and I pray it be the end of hard times in 2020. I hope that everything for all of you and yours wraps up nicely and gets easier, because it's been rough, Bob. It's been rough. But I wanted to leave some closing words before we do the prize pick, that We are doing more and more streaming on Code It Live, and we're doing things like, whether it's like we had a quarantine coding challenge where we were competing against each other to make goofy applications, or having different conversations on how people are handling remote work, et cetera, et cetera. So check us out. We'll be on here more and more, and we want to hear from you. So at Kendo UI, let us know the kind of content you want to see, and our advocacy team will bring it to you. So somebody said preach. Okay, so I don't know how to do this. I know we've been like...
Yeah, we've been so we have our extremely helpful Sarah Fats in the chat here, that's managing the form, and she's been dropping the number range. And then Alyssa, you've had the honor to kind of yell out a random number.
You get the honor tonight.
And
you get the honor.
Oh, you're giving me the
Carl,
honor
you
tonight.
gotta do it. Okay, Sarah, tell us the range. Carl, or wait, you need the range before Carl can pick a number. So that's...
Yes, exactly. I'm otherwise I just shout out, 6,901, right?
I see 39 viewers.
So Sarah actually reminded us that we're doing another quarantine coding on Friday. Next Friday. Not today. Today's Friday.
What day is it?
But next Friday. Yeah, what day is it?
With,
what time is it? Who
stuck
am I?
in the house all the time, so I'm like, is it Friday? I don't know. Between
1 and 66.
Holy meatballs!
If we only had 600 more people, I could have picked the devil's number, and that would have been very metal. So I would have been very happy about that. But since it's not,
and this is for all the cookies,
all right,
AirPods or an iPad. What number do you have?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. So we'll reach out to the winner, of course, and
we have your contact info.
You can decide. Yeah, you don't have to decide live on stream. That'll be up to you. I'm stalling. So 1 through 66. Can I roll a 66-sided dice on
Siri,
Google?
Roll a D66. Let me see if it actually works.
Yeah. Actually, it's really funny. I have been playing a lot of D&D with my friends. So we actually never played D&D when growing up. Like I did a little bit, just kind of goofing off. But all of us had never come together and played. So we decided to, right before everybody started working from home, we decided that, hey, we should do D&D. Let's try it out. And it just hit perfectly where everybody's, stay at home, shelter at home. Now we have like twice or even 3 times a week we're doing D&D. But I haven't had to roll a 66-sided die.
An app, rolladie.net.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm on. All right. I'm going to roll
it, Carl.
And the magical number is 20.
It's 20? Carl 20. Rolled it. It's 20. Sarah. Who is the lucky winner of either an iPod or AirPods? iPad, AirPods. Those are hard to say.
iPad or AirPods. I know, the O and the A.
If you do D&D, catch dragon humpers. Thanks, sir.
I'm going to have to check that out.
I love D&D.
I've been catching up on a lot of Critical Role as well. I already watched it once in a while, but now I'm like trying to get into it.
Bill Odom! Bill Odom, you are the lucky new owner of either an iPad or AirPods. How do you feel? Rigged. Green is saying it's rigged. Bill said yay. I think that means he's happy. Oh my wordy. Oh,
I hope so.
Gertie.
Yeah.
It's a comedy D&D stream. Awesome. I love D&D. I lost, ever since I moved from Orlando to Kansas City, I lost my IRL D&D group. So anything to...
You should check out Roll20. It's a website that is a really good platform for setting up remote D&D. So we use a mix of Discord and Roll20 to do it. So check it out for sure.
Awesome. Sarah said that she's going to shoot Bill an email. Thank you all so much for making ng-conf, making it incredible, being a part of this community, and for being so positive during this really funky time that we're in right now. So we will be on the stream later on next week doing all sorts of fun things. So check us out and hit us up on the Twitters. So I think that's all we have for you.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you everybody for especially for those of you on the East Coast. It's getting late. It's a Friday night.